So what does it take to build a fortress around an atom? We're digging into India's massive nuclear ambitions, and we're asking a really critical question. In a world full of threats, how do you protect some of the most powerful and dangerous materials on Earth?
So, why is this so important? Well, this quote from a Sandia National Labs report really lays it on the line. We're not just talking about politics or energy policy here. One mistake, just one single security breach, could lead to an absolute catastrophe. The stakes, they couldn't be higher.
And to give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with, just look at this number, 80,000. That's the estimated number of radioactive shipments moving across India's roads and railways every single year. Just think about that. Each and every one of those is a potential target that needs to be secured 24/7.
So that really brings us to the heart of the matter. You've got this huge, rapidly expanding nuclear program, and it's situated in one of the most complex geopolitical regions in the world. So the question is, how exactly does India manage to build a fortress around its atomic assets?
To even begin to answer that, you have to understand just how big India's nuclear ambition really is. I mean, we're not talking about a handful of reactors. This is a fundamental part of the country's vision for its future.
The goal itself is just massive. By the year 2050, India wants a full quarter, 25% of its electricity, to come from nuclear power. Now, to even get in the same ballpark as that target, they've had to launch one of the most ambitious nuclear construction programs on the entire planet.
And the way India plans to get there is pretty unique. It's this three-stage program designed for one main thing: total self-sufficiency. So, Stage 1 starts with natural uranium. Stage 2 then uses the byproducts from Stage 1 along with thorium. And eventually, Stage 3 will tap into India's absolutely enormous reserves of thorium. It's a very long-term game plan.
The whole idea is that nothing goes to waste. The spent fuel from one stage becomes the fresh fuel for the next. It's what they call a reprocess to reuse strategy, and it's all designed to squeeze every last drop of energy out of their limited uranium resources.
But here's the thing. It's not just about these giant power plants. India's nuclear footprint is everywhere. We're talking about almost 60,000 medical X-ray machines, industrial cameras, hospitals. All of these places use radiological materials, and every single one of them needs to be secured.
Okay, so you've got this huge, sprawling nuclear program. How on earth do you protect all of it? How do you actually build that security fortress?
Well, on paper, India's approach is built on 5 main pillars. It covers everything from strong laws and institutions to technology, training, and even international cooperation. The goal is to create a complete system, one that tackles the security challenge from every possible angle.
And behind those pillars, wow, it is a really complex web of government bodies. This chart gives you a glimpse of the scale. You've got research centers, industrial groups, and, this is crucial, you have the main regulator, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, or AERB. Remember that name, we'll be coming back to it.
Now, on the ground, the strategy is often called a security envelope. The best way to think about it is like a medieval castle with multiple walls. It's defense in depth. You've got the obvious things like guards and fences, but you've also got deep background checks on personnel, intense cybersecurity, and a system that accounts for every single gram of nuclear material. The idea is that if an attacker gets through one layer, there's always another one there to stop.
But you know, even the strongest fortress can have cracks, and official reports have actually pointed out some potential vulnerabilities in India's shield, starting with a really critical question about independence. So let's go back to that key institution we mentioned, the AERB. Its job is crystal clear. It's supposed to be the national watchdog, the authority that makes sure every single nuclear facility is operating safely and securely.
And this is where it gets complicated. Now, this quote, it's not from some outside critic or a foreign government. This is from India's own top auditor. And it says the ARB is subordinate to the central government and doesn't even have the authority to make its own rules. That raises a huge question, right? Can a watchdog really be effective if it's on a leash?
So let me break down how this potential conflict of interest works. On one hand, you have the Department of Atomic Energy, the DAE. Its job is to promote and expand nuclear power. On the other hand, you have the AERB, whose job is to regulate that program for safety. Here's the catch. The regulator, the AERB, reports directly to the promoter, the DAE. The agency pushing for expansion is essentially in charge of its own watchdog.
And the concerns don't stop there. Audits have pointed to other systemic issues too. Things like fines that are so low they don't really act as a deterrent,
A surprising number of facilities were found operating without valid licenses. There was also a slow adoption of international safety practices and even concerns about gaps in emergency plans for the communities living around the plants.
So, where do we go from here? How does India strengthen its shield? Well, the final part of this comes down to a really delicate balancing act between the historical need for secrecy in the nuclear world and the modern, growing demand for safety.
The recommendations to strengthen that shield are pretty clear. Number 1, and this is the big one, make the regulatory body truly independent. Number 2, shift the culture away from automatic secrecy and towards more transparency to build public and international confidence. And number 3 is very practical. Put modern radiation detectors in all the major seaports to catch illicit trafficking.
But you know, this isn't just on India. The reports are clear that the international community has a role to play too, by helping bring India into key global nuclear groups, by sharing best practices through joint security exercises, and by encouraging more regional cooperation. At the end of the day, this is about integration, not isolation.
And that leaves us with this final crucial question. For India, and really for every nuclear nation, the ultimate challenge is navigating this tension, this constant push and pull between national security, which has always demanded secrecy, and global security, which increasingly demands transparency and cooperation. Finding that balance, well, that's the real key to a secure atomic age.